Hello, my name is Mark and I thank you so much for coming by today. This is the second of 3 videos I'm presenting on some rather special purchases I made recently. But what's the big deal with these purchases? Well, they come from the Fabriano Paper Company in Fabriano, Italy, and after completing a job recently, I decided to treat myself and indulge my creative spirit by ordering 3 items directly from the Fabriano Boutique, the company's online retail store. The first item I purchased was the impressive yet totally adorable HETRE Mignon Wishes book, which is the first video in this series. I put a link down below so you can check it out. In that video, I discuss how I discovered Fabriano paper when I was younger and why it's been a mainstay for me for decades and has been a favorite among artists throughout history like Da Vinci, Raphael, and Michelangelo. And while the invention of papermaking is credited to China, the Italian papermakers took the craft to a whole new level through the use of technology and unique materials. Fabriano continues to be one of the most respected and popular brands of paper in the whole world, being synonymous with quality, style, and excellence. So it's not hard to understand why this was such a big treat for me and why I decided to share each purchase in a separate video, to celebrate the beauty of the paper and also the mastery of the craftsmanship. Today, I wanted to showcase the Fabriano Bouquet notebooks, a stunning set of 7 handmade notebooks with 7 different types of unique paper. According to Fabriano, this set is their 7 senses of paper, and I admit that was what got me to make the purchase in the first place. The books come in a colorful stack wrapped in a tight ribbon embossed with the Fabriano logo. Each book measures 5.5 by 4 inches and each contains 38 pages of unique paper with various paper weights, around 85 to 100 GSM. The name of each book is the Italian word for the description of the type of paper, but we'll get into that in just a minute. Once I collect them together and lay them out on the table in front of me, they look like a fresh bouquet of flowers, and I just couldn't wait to jump right into them once they arrived. Now, it's impossible for me to give you a full, tactile impression of each of these books, so I'll do my best to describe the texture, tooth, weight, and feel of each one. The first thing I wanted to demonstrate is the transparency of the different papers. Seeing the transparency can help get a better feel for what mediums are best to use with each book. Now, the red book is heavier, probably 100 GSM, and only slightly transparent. It has a nice smooth surface, and I can tell I'm going to enjoy using this paper. It seems like it will handle dry media and ink very well, but marker might probably bleed through a little bit. The pages of the orange book are thin and tight and very transparent, which tells me the paper isn't very absorbent, so it's probably best to use a dry medium or ink, though I expect that ink would take a long time to dry, bleed through, and maybe buckle the page because it's so thin and tight. For the yellow book, the paper has a unique texture, which I'll discuss in just a minute. This will be really good with dry media and ink. It's a heavyweight paper and may be able to handle very light washes of wet media and maybe marker too. The light green book has a nice middle-of-the-road paper that's lighter in weight and somewhat transparent. The smooth surface will handle ink and dry media very well. Marker would probably need a blotter under the page, as I expect it would most likely bleed through. With the dark green book, the pages have remnants on them, giving them the most unique visual look of the set. It's a heavier weight with a slight tooth to the surface. Ink will absorb nicely into this paper, but I think pencil might smudge a little bit on the paper as well. The light blue book feels similar to the light green book, though it's more opaque and less smooth, and makes me think it will handle dry media and ink the best. Lastly, the paper of the dark blue book is heavier than the others and is more opaque. The surface has a really nice tooth and the texture is very familiar to me. I can tell just from the feel of it I'm going to like working with this book a lot. So when I look at my other books like this Moleskine sketchbook, I get a better sense of just how good the quality of the Fabriano books is. While Moleskine makes a good product, the paper here is thin and transparent, and even though the book isn't very old, it has an old feel to it. I know from using it, the Moleskine doesn't handle wet media or marker very well. You can see that the gel pen I used on these pages bled right through to the back of the other page. Now, with the Strathmore recycled paper sketchbook, the paper is thick and has tooth, making it nice for dry media and just okay for ink or markers. But because it's recycled, we don't know exactly how many times it's gone through the recycle process, which can be bad for the environment. With my favorite go-to sketchbook, the Travelogue Handbook Journal, the paper is heavy with a thick weight and a surface tooth that I really like to work with. It's close to the blue Naturale book, though the Fabriano paper isn't as heavy and has a more sophisticated feel about it. Well, obviously I'm really excited to dive into this bouquet of notebooks to see what they're all about. Let's take a look and explore them all right after this coffee break. For this demonstration, I'm using Winsor & Newton's Nut Brown ink, which will look really nice on these high-quality papers. The first book is the Vellutata, which means velvety, which is appropriate for the smooth, lush surface of this paper. As I drag my pen across the page, it glides easily and I can feel just how rich the paper is. I really like that it's a heavier weight paper and is slightly transparent. The nib of the pen doesn't catch or snag at all like it might with a lesser quality paper. And as far as the surface goes, the closest comparison I can think of is with the Crescent sketchbooks by Render, which also have a nice, smooth texture, but have a heavy, bright white page that's virtually opaque. Even just creating an inside cover page, I can already tell that I'm going to enjoy working with this book and the smooth, velvety paper. The second book is the Pergamentata, which is parchment paper, a classic in the paper industry, which in ancient times was made using animal skins. Today, parchment is made by removing the air from the fibers and treating the pulp so it becomes gelatinized, making it very strong, tight, thin, and transparent. But because of this process, it's not absorbent, so ink takes a long time to dry, and when it does, it tends to buckle the paper, lending even more to that classic parchment look and feel. This type of paper is very specific, and I'll probably enjoy using this book more for writing than drawing. The third book is the Goffrata. This book features an embossed paper that has a raised line pattern on it that makes for a wonderful, textured experience when writing or drawing. What's interesting is that one side of the paper is very smooth, while the other side is textured. Writing or drawing on the smooth side is like working with the first book, the Vellutata, in that my pen glides over the page without interruption. Yet, drawing or writing on the embossed side results in a whole different experience when dragging the pen across those raised, bumpy lines. It's definitely going to be a fun paper to work with. The fourth book is the Vergata, which means laid. It's a classic paper that's warm and smooth, but which has parallel lines that run across it, much like a watermark. The lines are caused when the paper is literally laid across a wire mesh and dried. The lines come from that wire mesh and give it that classic look which has become a standard in professional printing. What's nice is that the lines don't interfere with the surface of the paper, which has a bit of a tooth to it, making it absorbent, but also allows the pen to move freely across the page. The fifth book, Ecologica, represents Fabriano's commitment to preserving the environment. By using certified virgin fibers in their paper, they reduce the amount of waste that goes into the environment through recycling. This paper leverages materials grown in pre-planned forests like cotton, linen, and hemp, which are all low-impact materials, and the paper is treated with agents that are proven to be safe for the environment. The texture of the paper is smoother and softer than parchment, but has a similar crispy feel to it. I love that you can see artifacts in this paper, giving it a really fresh, organic feel. The sixth book, their Naturale, is made from unrefined, all-natural materials like wood, leaves, and cotton stock, giving it a classic off-color hue and a slightly toothy texture. The pulp is thinned in the pressing process to remove air, but it's still highly absorbent, so drawing ink seeps in nicely right into these fibers. I really enjoyed working with this paper because the surface has that even tooth and the pen just seems to glide across the page and the ink just seems to come right off the pen right into the page. I can tell I'm going to really enjoy using this book in the future. And lastly, the seventh book is the Marcata, which means marked, or in this case, felt marked. This is a really popular style of paper used in sketchbooks, drawing pads, and even greeting cards. The slightly roughed, soft texture comes from the forming process where sheets of felt are used during the pressing of the paper to remove water. These sheets of felt are exactly what we think of, sheets of cotton or wool that support the wet paper until it dries, leaving behind a slightly rough texture of the felt sheets. To me, the Marcata resembles the feel of the Travelogue Handbook Journal, so I can see this book being one of my favorites to use out of the set. Now, as a disclosure, I don't get paid to promote these products. These are items that I purchased, and I enjoy sharing with others who may not be aware of them. Also, I'm not a papermaking expert, not at all. So if any of the terms are confusing, I posted a link to the Penicuik papermaking glossary, which is a great resource to understand paper terminology and how paper is made. Also, I've posted a link to a video by Cowling and Wilcox that brilliantly illustrates the entire Fabriano papermaking process. It's really interesting, and I recommend checking out both links if you have the time. Overall, each of these books is masterfully assembled, and the paper quality is what I would expect from one of the biggest names in paper. If I were to pick out my favorites, it would be the Vellutata, the Marcata, and the Ecologica, though the others will be a joy to use and explore as well. I'll keep these books tied together the way they arrived and feel that same thrill whenever I take one out to express my creativity or to try something new. And even though it was less than 25 American dollars, the shipping to the US was very expensive, making this a luxury purchase for those who really want to experience a range of unique classic papers or to buy as a wonderful gift for someone. As I said, for me, this was a treat for working hard and an indulgence for my creative spirit. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and these notebooks. The final video in the series is coming soon, so if you haven't subscribed, please do, and I'll be happy to bring new content like this in the future. I'm grateful for your time as always and your feedback. Please stay healthy, stay well, and as always, God bless.